want to do a quick cradle to grave kind of thing on the white worms. Give you a quickie on how to do them all the way from starting them out to what to do when the culture starts to crash. I get a lot of questions about the materials that I use. So here goes. Arnold's 100% whole wheat bread. You know, I can get it. It's available. It's not too expensive. It's pretty good bread. I use, for the amount of worms I have right now, piece and a half every other day. So I take out a piece and a half. What's left goes back in the freezer, and I cut it into about, I don't know, 3/4 inch pieces, slices. This little plate I have almost is the right size for this. So, but I cut it because this is how I'm going to feed it. Nice little slices. Okay, there it gives the little pieces I feed. I recommend using a natural, preferably organic, plain yogurt. Another really nice item I have found that I take a lot myself also. Some of the Asian or Eastern people will know what it is. It's milk kefir. It's similar to yogurt. It's a bacteria that you give to put in organic or just pasteurized milk, and the bacteria grows, eats the sugars out, makes it a really good stuff. Good for your digestive tract, and it's maybe better than the yogurt. And you get to eat what you lick off the container. Okay. Then I mix that on the bread because I want it to soak in as much as possible. Okay. You have to remember when you're doing this that you can eat your kefir, but once you start actually doing the worms, try not to eat too much. Okay. Brewer's yeast. I like Lewis Labs. I don't know. It's what I started with. It works great. It's a powder. Sprinkle the powder on. For new cultures, they don't eat so much of the bread. Mostly they eat the kefir and the brewer's yeast. Older cultures will eat everything. Okay, so that's got that done. That done. And that done. Okay, now food's ready. I'm gonna go away for just a minute while I put all this stuff back in the refrigerator and get set up for the next part. Okay, here's the inside of my wine cooler. Doesn't have any wine in it. On top we've got some storage garlic, and then you can see here that I've got that many white worm cultures going. Looks like 3, 6, 7, 8. Some of these are just about finished, so I need to restart them, and I'll show you how to do that. But first off, we're going to go through these, and we've got to process and harvest the worms and feed everybody. So here goes with that. Okay, I've pulled the first couple containers out. Now each of the containers, you can tell there's not many worms in here. They're all on the side, so this container is getting pretty close to being finished. Air holes all along through here, so I can stack them and the air holes are still open. So I pop the top off, and you want to harvest what you can get off the top of the plastic, because that's going to be real clean. Then in with a finger. Grab them off the sides. Now this culture here is getting really close. This one's into the dangerous stage for crashing. soil is pretty much all soured. The worms are all on the edges and the sides. When you start getting lots of little pieces of your bread that's just kind of like sunk into the dirt, you're getting close to it being finished. Now when it finally crashes, don't open it till you get it outside. It smells pretty bad. But see how this is getting kind of soupy. It's about done. It'll go another few days, and the scary part, of course, is that when they're about to crash, all the worms are running away. And as a result, it's like it's the most productive culture you've ever had in your life. And that's the worms abandoning ship. I mean, look at all the worms on the backside here, and all the worms down inside here. But you can see there's no worms in the dirt, so the dirt's about finished. So this one won't last but a few more days at best. So I'm going to get everything I can off of this one. I can even like lay it in here. Try and get as many worms as I can off. When you feed cultures like this, you want to encourage the worms to move to the edges so that they'll climb up the sides and you can get them harvested. Because you want to keep as many of these worms as you can. So you only put the food around the edges. That'll bring the worms that direction, because the soil in the middle there, see, there's not much in there. So, and don't forget the lid. The lid is also covered. Just wet your finger and kind of swipe and roll your finger a little bit at the same time, and you can pick up all these worms. If you're squeamish, you're in trouble. Okay, so that does that one. We'll swap here to the next one. See how it's looking. See, this one is a little newer culture. It's not really producing massively, only doing some, so we'll keep feeding it and encouraging it to grow. So we're done with that one. Okay, we'll swap these two and get some more. Okay, here's another one. Wet your finger. Work the worms. I end up with more of these containers than I need. I can grow more worms than I need. But that's because as they start to crash, you got to start a new one. So that means you got one that's really producing and one that's just starting out. This one's in fairly good shape. Give it some bread to eat. Put it face down, because they're going to want the brewer's yeast and the kefir or the yogurt more than they want the bread. If you can't get the yogurt, people ask what else can you use. Well, the old time method was white bread and milk, so you can use milk. It's not nearly as good, not nearly as nutritious. White bread and milk is pretty all carbohydrate-y. Gonna end up with worms that are pretty much fatty. I like to load them full of vitamins and stuff, so that's why I feed them the way I do. We'll swap this one over. Another one here. Depending upon the stage of the cultures, at certain stages all the worms will be on top of this needlepoint grating, and at other stages they're all on the sides. You'll kind of learn over time how old the container is, how the container's doing, by how much and where you find the worms. See, this one's getting close to being done. So that's the second one that's about finished. It's getting kind of nasty looking. Not much time left with it. So, and it's starting to get a bit of an odor, so it probably will not make it but another couple of days. We've got some serious storms outside right now, so I don't want to put this outside. Get all that water all over me. Okay, swap these for a couple more. Here's a small one. These are the kind of cultures that I make to take to the fish club meetings to auction off, or for people when they want a culture from me. As you can see, this is a ready to harvest, fully nice culture. I'll take it to the next fish club meeting, give them some food to eat. Can off the edges here. Okay, swap for two more. Yeah, see, now here's one where there are not so many on the sides. They're all up here on the top of the grating. They'll congregate on top of where the food is. You don't particularly want to get the food into your tank. That's the purpose of the grating, is to separate the food from the worms. So we'll give them some more stuff to eat. Keep it under the grating. More on the lids. And still another one that's about finished. Not much worms in the middle, mostly on the edges. Like I say, I really need to get some new ones started because I've got 3 here that are going to crash pretty soon. And then I won't have so many worms to feed. So. Only along the edges. Okay, now there's a couple of ways when you know they're crashing, a couple of ways to restart. Here's one of the easiest ways. Fresh setup, got some dirt. I've already seeded this one a little bit. Okay, so put some food in, and then take a turkey baster, suck up a bunch of your existing worms, plow them right into it. Okay, there you go. Do that for a couple of days when you got extras, and it'll give you a real jump start because that water's got the bacteria and everything going. Good way to start some new worms. Now, the other way to start some new worms is take a fresh container. I'm sure it's got holes punched in it. Add some potting soil, planting mix, seed starting mix, whatever you got. It's all pretty much the same. You just don't want to use garden dirt. You don't want to go out and dig dirt out of the garden. You're just going to be bringing in all kinds of other bacteria and stuff that you really don't want to mess with. Now this stuff is super dry. You're going to put a bunch of water in it. And then, because it's so dry, let's knead it up some. Ideally, I would have done this part last night and put it in the cooler so it was cold. And I would have had more water than this, because I'm not sure this is going to be enough. Okay, now I can either add some food and turkey baster some fresh stuff in, or the other method that works well too is to take an existing culture, take Take an existing one, even one that's in trouble. Just skim it some. This gets you some worms and get you a super duper dose of the bacteria that you're after. That one may really be a little further along than I want to work with. Let's see how this one's looking. Yeah, see, this one is, you pull it back, see, worms are loving the dirt in there. So I'm going to take a scoop of this dirt right here and set it in there. You want to mash it like pots, but don't, because you'll kill all the worms. And then over here you can add some more soil back to that spot. Keep it going, or since I know this one's getting a little time on it, I'm going to just leave the empty hole. So you take this one, give it some food. This will give you a good start here. So there's 2 ways to start new ones. Let's get this back in. Now, the water here that I have for the worms is pretty nasty. So you want to pour that water off. It pours off easy because the worms all sink to the bottom. So you want to pour it off and rinse it a few times before you feed. So that's got us all set up. So that's everything from starting a new batch to feeding to harvesting to replacing cultures as they start to get old. Pretty much everything you need to know about white worms. Temperature range, mid 50s to low 60s. I keep mine at 54 degrees. It's the pre-setting in a wine cooler. Works fabulous. So this has been David Ramsey. This has been pretty much the quickest little video I've ever done on everything there is to know about white worms. Give them a try. Hope you enjoy. Oh, one last thing. They don't ship very well. You've got to get white worms from someone who already has white worms. Try your local fish club. You can Google it. Killifish clubs nearly always have it. The betta people like white worms. So you need to make a little trip to some place, find them. If you Google, find a nearby club, you can email somebody at that club and ask them if you can get some white worms. It's worth the effort because it is a huge amount of food you can grow with very little effort. All right, thank you for watching.